Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And we are honored to have Congressman Biggs in studio.
Back again, repeat performance.
Yes, so you were with us.
Very, very eventful month he's had.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
So
very, very eventful.
You were with us, I think it was December 8th was the date.
For only like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was a short
zoomed
one.
in quick.
Right. From D.C., because you had a lot going on. You had announced after the election that you were going to run against Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. Obviously, you had a lot of people say, "Oh, this is crazy. What are you doing? This is just a waste. You're just being a rabble-rouser." But
You're just being a typical conservative MAGA weirdo.
But you had a pretty specific goal in mind, which was to institute a number of reforms in the House, because the House has been broken for a long time, and that was your platform. And as it turned out, after a lot of struggle, a lot of votes, I mean, what went 15 votes?
15 ballots.
So 15 ballots. Yeah. McCarthy became Speaker after he got enough yes votes, and you and a few others voted present in order to give him that threshold. And you took a beating for a month. And I understand. I saw that firsthand when I was a staffer in Congress with Congressman Shattuck, because he was similarly conservatively inclined and willing to take the arrows. What were the big wins?
So there's kind of three categories that I would say that have the potential to be lasting, transitional type of moves. So the first one is this: we got a commitment to bring certain conservative legislation to the floor, right? And that's good because they just have been thwarting all this stuff all along, and it's everything from border fencing to a whole host of them, but. A term limits bill, all kinds of things.
I mean, the last time a term limits bill was on the floor was in 1995.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, that gives you an idea. So, everybody says they're for term limits, but they don't want to vote for them. I don't even like the term limit bill that they said they're going to bring to the floor. It's a bad bill. But
it's still something.
But it's on its way.
But it's on its way. I mean, but I'm going to offer an amendment to fix it. But so you get a series of.
But that in and of itself is a big victory.
Right.
Yeah.
You can offer an amendment to fix it.
That's right, and that's you're ahead of me. You're getting ahead of me. Yeah, because
I'm sorry because I when that was revealed, I was like, oh, amendments! What a novel idea.
Yeah.
Right. So that gets to the second area I'd say is the rules package. The rules package. That's how you govern. And even Paul Ryan said last week, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Paul Ryan said, hey, yeah, when I was the Speaker of the House, I thought I had too much power. just four of us could bring a 4,000-page omnibus.
Unfortunately, he never used it.
He did. He did. Just
not the way.
Yeah. He kept going over to the Democrats to do these massive spending bills.
Exactly.
So instead of making it conservative, he went the other way. But anyway, this rules package, in my opinion, should have been the baseline for every speaker ever. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are things like 72 hours to read a bill, and it's worded in a way that actually guarantees at least 72 hours.
Not 3 days where it's 1 minute, 24 hours in 1 minute.
Exactly.
It's actually 72 hours.
Exactly. It's a full 72 hours. And so that's remarkable, but it still would not mean anything, but these other two things really help: germaneness. So you actually have a more codified structural definition of germaneness. And we're getting in the weeds here, but that's how you determine whether you're going to have a massive omnibus bill. Or how about this, where you say we're going to complete the border wall, and then we're going to throw in something $40 billion for Ukraine. That would not be germane.
Exactly.
Right? Not germane. And so what makes that different this time is you get a point of order. You have a parliamentary procedure to actually challenge a ruling of germaneness of an amendment or a combination of bills. So that's important. Third thing I think that's important with that is the single subject rule. So we've actually iterated the single subject rule. The problem with this is a little bit weaker than I think it should be. You don't have the same kind of parliamentary accountability for violation of the single subject rule that you otherwise would have. because it's just a statement that any yum can put on there saying, "Hey, this is a single subject bill that includes the border wall and Ukraine funding." Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to rely on the germaneness primarily.
Right.
But those in and of themselves are huge.
Those are huge, huge things. Because that's stuff that's...
And yet they seem so obvious.
Well,
I mean, to those of us who've been around for the last however many years, they seem so obvious. Like, why wouldn't this be part of any rules package if you want to actually run a country?
Right. And that goes to why it was so fascinating to watch the wailing and gnashing of teeth by the mainstream media saying these guys are, just wanting to throw a wrench in things. They don't want to get things done. They're just being rabble-rousers. They're just being, contrarians. And really all you were doing is saying, let's get the House back in regular order.
Right.
And the American people, if they really understood how badly out of order the House has been for so long, they'd be like, well, this just makes perfect sense. And so there isn't anything. I mean, the thing that was fascinating to me is I was watching the different demands that you guys had on the speaker about the rules and about the way the House functions. There was nothing that was at all outside the realm of normalcy.
Right.
I mean, it was perfectly normal to say, hey, the motion to vacate has been a part of the House rules since 1800, and Pelosi took it out. We're going to just go back to regular order. Or the fact that we have to pass a budget, or that we have to, have germaneness, or any of these things. This is, to me, it was just astounding to watch how worked up the establishment that are dug in on D.C. were just freaking out. And it's like, hey, let's just run the House the way the House should be run.
Yeah, I mean, so think of it. Over the last 40, 50 years, you've seen this movement, a centralization of power in the four corners, the four people. Mm-hmm. The speaker, the minority leader in the House, and the majority and minority leader in the Senate. They control everything, and so we couldn't even offer amendments. I mean, I've never seen an open amendment process since I've been in Congress.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You never did when you really think about it.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I would imagine there's a host of Democrats who are like, yay, maybe. I can actually because you can actually do what the House is supposed to do. You can co-sponsor an amendment. You can bring things to the floor together and try to get things done. And you're just not sitting on the sidelines watching, these large, no-name omnibus behemoths come to the floor, and there's nothing you can do.
Right. I mean, and so we were trying to open up the process, right? I mean, that's what's so critical. And I got to tell you, because we were talking before we started doing this, recording this and everything, the Democrats were, they were, oh yeah, we're unified and everything like that. But I'm sitting on the floor, and Democrats would come up to me, they're tired. Andy, how much longer?
You can't vote on this from your boat. So sorry.
Exactly. They have to be there in person.
Sorry, Greg. You've got to be here.
I'm so how much longer? We need a speaker. That's my favorite line. Andy, we need a speaker. And I said, well, what happens, is if 10 of you guys walk off, then we lose our leverage, and because the threshold goes down, the denominator is decreased, and he just looks at me. I said, well, so you guys will want to stay here as much as I do then.
Exactly.
But so we talked about the rules. So the rules package there's more to the rules package than that, obviously, but amendments, and then there was some what I would call an equalization of allowing conservatives to sit on committees that heretofore they might put one token on,
right,
but with no say. So the Rules Committee is getting ostensibly 3, but in my opinion, really 2.
Which having any at all, is a win.
Yeah, it's
we've
big.
We've never had a true conservative on the Rules Committee. So as long as I've been.
So you get a chance now for them to say, we can't do this. This is you at least need to open it up for the amendments. And so the process is right now, the way that it is before, and hopefully the rules package will change this, is you show up in Rules Committee, and they'll put 5 of you on a panel. You get to advocate for your amendment, and they say things like, thank you very much, and then you pat you on the head, and out the door you go, and you don't have a chance for that amendment ever to be debated. And the other thing too is and this is another getting the weeds thing on the rules, but most people don't realize this. Rosendale said this in one of his speeches. He says, America, if you're watching, you probably think this is what we do on every bill. No, this is the first time since I've been in Congress we do this. And I'm thinking, I can't remember me ever seeing that in 6 years. But they'll do these suspensions, and you're flying back on the plane. And in the meantime, they've got 10 people, 5 from each side, and they're running through the bills on these suspensions. And they're going to waive the rules on quorum. They're going to waive all the rules, and they're going to vote. Those people are going to vote on them, and then they're going to be shipped over to the Senate unless somebody specifically is there to ask for a roll call vote. That's what happens. And it used to be, it was merely a convenience for things that are trivial, ostensibly trivial, like naming of post offices and buildings. But we've seen everything from the Safe Banking Act to tens of billions of dollars of bills being spent through suspension.
On the suspension calendar.
A suspension calendar. And you have to get, this is one of my problems with Kevin, is you have to get the minority leader and the majority leader have to agree what goes on the suspension calendar.
Exactly.
So we changed that. So those things are good. Then we move into the other thing, and this is really critical because we're kind of there now, and that is the budget process, to try to get it to a more normalized budget process. So, for instance, on debt ceiling, this is not in the rules package, but this is one of the agreements, is that we have to get some kind of assurance that you're going to actually reduce spending, federal spending, before you can vote for a debt ceiling increase. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because we've got $31 trillion in the last 12 years. We've gone from $11 trillion to almost $32 trillion in debt. And we just keep raising the debt ceiling. Why? Because it's easier to do that than to balance a budget.
It's easier to do than actually do your job.
Yeah.
And the media and everybody else just starts crowing like they were this morning and yesterday that, we're going to default on this and we're going to default on that, and it's going to be Armageddon. It's going to be Armageddon.
Yeah, that's right.
These nasty, evil Republicans. Look what they do.
Well, and it's interesting because it was first you heard the talk, the debt ceiling will reach its max, sometime in the summer, and then Yellen comes out and says, it's today, today, Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
we're having to take dramatic.
Yeah, here it is,
moves
January 19th. And it's today.
When did she first say that? I mean, so like 3 days ago. Hey, we're going to run out of money in 3 days.
We're there. So clearly there's a lot of things that can be done to avert hitting the ceiling. Right. And it makes a lot of sense. But we're going to it's going to be a long, hot summer because there's going to be a lot of battles over this. Right. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand that you are going to hear that the world will end.
Yes.
And guess what? It's not going to end.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think so I have to say this. So we spent 3.5 days on a debate that was historic because it hasn't happened in 100 years about who would be the third most powerful elected official in the country. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's an embarrassment. The Republican Party's going to collapse. The majority's going to collapse. The institution's going to collapse. I mean, I heard all of those. I heard them from members of Congress.
Right, yeah. Right.
And I'm like, okay, this guy, if Biden, and this is a real possibility, if Biden goes down, this guy will be the vice president of the United States. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
Well, it seems to be moving in that direction as we're speaking.
Yeah, So
as we said in our podcast last week, the deep state seems to be coming for Joe Biden.
Yeah, they are. I think he will make it through his term, but he ain't going to make it for a second term. He's not going to even run. Yeah. If he runs, he's going to be a trivial candidate because the deep state, the cartel,
The cartel.
The cartel.
The abyss.
Yeah,
Well, I
at this
mean,
point.
and I guess we can segue to this and come back to the other stuff, but it is an important point. I mean, if you look at the way that this sensitive documents issue has been handled, I feel like he's been set up for failure by people on the inside, because they find the documents at the Penn Biden Center before the election. They don't announce it until last week. But then they also knew that there were documents in the garage with the Corvette and in his house.
That were in a
Wilmington.
campaign video.
And
They were behind the Corvette in the campaign video.
well, yeah. So, but why didn't they
It says
just
something
release?
like Hunter CCP classified? I think on the box. Is that how they had it labeled? I don't know.
But it just.
Well, I mean, the Hunter Biden piece is the other piece that no one's really talking about, but the $49,910 that he was paying in rent to his dad at the house.
I got to tell my kids I'm
It's
going to
just-
raise their rent.
Right.
I'm
mean-
raising their rent. This is ridiculous.
And he was getting $50,000 a month from Burisma. So,
Right.
connect everything. It gets really dark.
But just on the document, I mean, the way they've handled this,
Yeah.
why wouldn't they have just announced all of it? I mean, it just looks bad, and I think it's being purposefully mishandled to make it nearly impossible for him to run for re-election as a result of the doubts that it raises.
Yeah, I agree with you, and there's something really wrong about the timeline too, because the call goes into the archives from Biden's lawyers, I think on November 4th, and they say we've got these classified documents and we're reporting them. Those documents were for when he was vice president.
Yeah.
We're talking 6 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what is the time? How long did anybody know that those were hanging out there?
Right.
And
Well, and to be clear, the vice president a former vice president has no business having
Right.
any classified documents at all. The only person who can classify or declassify documents is the president.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
That is when everyone says, "Oh, this is different than Trump."
There's
Yes,
it is different. That is the key difference.
It's different in that it was 100% illegal for Biden to have these documents.
Absolutely, and that seems to be being overlooked or just
because
set aside.
the only way you get those documents is you remove them from a skiff.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the only way you get those documents. It's like what's the guy, the reporter years ago that had stuffed him? He was in the library.
No, that was Sandy
That was-
Berger.
Sandy Berger. There you go.
But it was Sandy Berger, but it was also didn't Richardson from New Mexico do that as well? He put some in his sock.
Out of the skiff. Well, the
Yeah.
big one was Sandy
Bill
Berger
Richardson.
sticking him in his pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Berger.
And so Biden or whomever must have done something like that to get these documents moved.
I mean,
In three different locations now, or four different locations.
Yeah, that's the
Which is
gift.
completely illegal.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. But you know that it has
And
to.
that's the drip, drip, drip.
It is the drip, and it has to be the cartel because you're getting people like Adam Schiff saying,
Yeah,
exactly.
Like Adam Schiff's like, you got to know how to leak this the confidential stuff. You guys are pikers on this. I know real well how to do this.
Right.
But I mean, the reality is, it's dripping out. You got Eric Swalwell saying either yesterday or this morning that, yes, we need to have a special counsel investigation.
Elian Omar, AOC.
They're all in on it.
They're all for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, this
Terrible.
doesn't seem correct.
And what's interesting is that the media has been so basically silent. I mean, if you think about if
not just silent, but it's the lead story on the Today Show, which would never be the case.
Yeah.
right, but the fact
Of all
that
places.
but the fact that these progressives are calling for this, that's if that had happened when Trump was president, it would be talked about.
Can you
nonstop.
imagine Don Jr. doing anything like what Hunter
Well,
Biden's
no,
done?
no. So
What the Armageddon that would take.
So
place
this
after
then
that.
goes to part of what it's as the deals that were made by
Yeah,
Kevin
tie it all
McCarthy for Speaker that include some committee assignments. So you're going to have you're on oversight and on judiciary,
Yes.
and you'll remain there. And those are going to be the two most important committees
completely.
for the next 2 years, without question. But on oversight and on judiciary, you're going to have some additional conservatives joining you.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, and just so you know, as far as I know, there was never any, that was not on any of the deals made from
As
the 20.
okay.
From the 20. And I believe that Kevin probably cut some deals elsewhere? Heavens, yes. It is politics.
Yeah.
Right.
But what we asked for were slots, and because we needed to even up on some things. But those committees, I was looking at the newbies that are out there on oversight. Really, some strong new freshmen who are coming in that are going to be on there, and I know that the whole committee is being restructured to focus on actually better committee hearings. I mean, no more of this oversight stuff where we had like I think it was 7 hearings on the Washington football team, whatever they're called now.
The Commanders.
The Commanders. I always want to say the Commodores. That just seems it seems so much better.
Hey, I'm just going to say
more
it.
sense.
Hail to the Redskins.
But I mean, we had 7 hearings about.
Is that politically incorrect? I don't care.
Yeah, no.
Hail
but,
to the Redskins.
Yeah, but 7 hearings on a sexual harassment issue that they had in that private sector business.
Oh yeah.
That was clarified, I think 6 or 7 years ago. It was 2 or 3 name changes in between, and but we had I think 7 hearings in oversight committee. That's nuts. That's just crazy.
Complete waste of time.
And by the way, they'd already been fined by EEOC. They'd already had settlements of the lawsuits with the cheerleaders involved, and the NFL had already disciplined the guy who owns. I was going to say Redskins, the Washington Football Club, whatever they are,
the Commanders.
Yes, had already disciplined them, and so it's like, well, so what are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing here?
That's what a Democrat chairman will do. So now it'll be different. So your chairman is I just forgot
James
his
Comer.
name. James Comer.
James Comer.
Yeah,
And then judiciary is obviously Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
So these are going to be some interesting times for you, for the nation, to watch how this all unfolds. And I mean, you've said that you don't think Biden runs for re-election. I don't think so either. I think it's going to be as a result of both the deep state saying this guy can't, he's not going to make it, and the fact that the oversight and judiciary committees are going to explain to the American people some of the things that have been done that are just completely unconstitutional.
Yeah, and like Jim, I think we're focusing really on the weaponization of the federal police apparatus. I think that may be the first thing he's talking about, and with James, he's talking about. He started out wanting to talk about the financial scandals because I mean the statements that were submitted from the banks. About suspicious activity on Hunter Biden's accounts. And we're talking, if an individual has one of those in their lives or an entity has one, that's remarkable. I mean, and Comer used to be a banking official at the state level. And Hunter Biden has over 100.
Oh my God.
Over 100. And because there's money that's flowing in from Burisma and China and all these
and Russia
and you get all this stuff coming in.
It's unbelievable.
And they're like, well, these are big sums of money coming in from maybe foreign governments that are under special interest, and so they start sending them off. So
10% for the big guy
and 10% for the big guy. And I keep asking, is that Dr. Jill or is that Joe? Who is the big guy there? Who's running that?
Yeah.
And then
it's not James.
No.
Well, you got the 2 brothers as well. I mean,
Yeah.
and so you got Frank and I guess Jim is his name, Richard, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But I mean, how in the world does one of them become a multi-millionaire doing a kind of work he doesn't know what he's doing through a contract with the U.S. federal government to build basically houses in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
These are things you really got to get to the bottom of if you want to root out construction.
This is corruption. This is just
it's
bald-faced corruption.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
And yeah, I mean, wow, there's just so much to unwind.
Yeah.
So another big one that I've been waiting for is, will there be an impeachment of Secretary of DHS?
God, I hope so.
Alejandro Mayorkas. So this was another problem I had with Kevin, is before the election and literally right after the election, before he realized what was going on, he said he didn't think anybody in the Biden administration had done anything worthy of being impeached. Okay, that was an eyebrow raiser. and then he said he wanted an impeachment inquiry, which is the way you started anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then on the Sunday talk show, he did not say that he would support an impeachment process again. And we have some members, quite frankly, in our conference that don't want to do it because they're concerned that it would look like it would be political attack. And then others have said, well, we should be impeaching Joe Biden because he's the guy. But the way a cabinet works, and particularly I believe this cabinet works, is these are individual fiefdoms. Joe Biden is, I mean, you saw with the Potemkin Village in El Paso when he was down for 4 hours there. He has no idea, I believe, of everything that's going on and everything that's bad. Mayorkas is running that show. And so I introduced impeachment articles in August of 21 because he was violating everything from the parole statute to Title VIII and all of these things. And we started the first month of the Biden administration with a record, and every month since then has been a record, including last month 250,000 encounters plus about 125,000 estimated gotaways into our country. We have no idea where they're from, what they're doing, what's going to happen. So my renewed articles of impeachment will be coming out in a couple weeks, and it will originate in the Judiciary Committee. I'm not sure every Republican's on board there yet, because the other thing is there's a minority view of what high crime is, and that's an actual criminal felony. That's not the majority view of scholars, nor my view. If you look back, when we talk about high crimes, what it constitutes is basically abusing the American public, and there's a few other things that they kind of define around that. And a misdemeanor is not considered necessarily an actual criminal misdemeanor. This is a series of events that also abuse the American public. And
right.
what you're seeing at the border is it's unconscionable, absolutely unconscionable, and it's deliberate. Nobody's that incompetent. I just got to say, nobody is that incompetent.
They've been doing this.
It's been deliberate from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
From the beginning, and it's so painfully obvious. And to your point about El Paso, how they cleaned it all up and sanitized everything, but also your assertion that the president really doesn't understand or know what's going on. He's just being force fed whatever information they want to force feed him. That goes directly to what we've been talking on the show the last several weeks. That there's just not enough narcotics to get him up in the morning, get him in front of a teleprompter, force feed him whatever needs to be done for him to run for president again.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday,
and we're seeing it in real time.
No public events for the president of the United States yesterday. I mean, and
his calendar. I look at it every once in a while. There's nothing.
Yeah, there's
versus to his credit, Trump. It was packed.
Trump was
packed.
Trump was
George
vigorous.
Bush packed. Even Obama packed.
Yeah.
There's nothing on his calendar every day. A couple things here and there where they wheel him out, but that's it.
Well, they put the lid on that very early in the day, every single day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So you and newly elected and sworn in Senator J.D. Vance have a joint venture that I just saw yesterday. What's going on there?
So we've requested more information from Secretary Mayorkas because there's a statute that allows the DHS to grant parole to individuals. It's a very individual program, and prior to Biden, Even under Obama, you might have.
Well, this is Obama's third term. We all
Yeah,
know
that's right.
It's worse.
But he was, he was better his first
He was,
two.
yeah.
You might have 8, 10, 12 people a year get parole, and it gives you a legal status to be here for a certain reason, and usually there's a deadline. It ends, and it would be, I'm coming in. I witnessed a crime, and I went back home to Mexico. You want me, and we work with Mexican government. We give you parole, and you come back in to testify, right? Something like that. They granted over 300,000 people parole last year. So that's amazing. And then they've announced a new program to grant parole. And by the way, this is de facto amnesty because you're going to get some kind of legal paperwork, and then you're going to be wandering around the country. To grant up to 30,000 people every month parole status from 4 countries: Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And I know why that's the case, because we don't have the Remain in Mexico policy, and we also don't have enforcement of the first safe state international law, which the U.S. used to subscribe to. So what happens is we don't have agreements with any of those 4 countries to repatriate. I think we might have one with Haiti, but I know we don't with Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And so what would happen is you came in, we could send you back. We're not doing that. But you're going to allow 360,000 people more on top of the other people you're paroling in. And this is just facilitating a catch and release program that this administration wants.
Yes, unbelievable.
It's a mess, and we're seeing it on our streets.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming, we're already in 2024. Election, momentum, whatever. So Kirsten Sinema shocks the world, except for Chris, who called this. He said she was going to switch to independent.
I pay attention. She knows how to count. That's what I always say to people.
So So this, Arizona was already going to be very, kind of again the center of the political universe because of the Senate race and with the Senate, a 1-seat majority for the Democrats, and a presidential election. What does this do to the landscape in your mind as far as what the Senate race looks like? How do you, play out in your mind the presidential election coming up in 2024?
So that race actually gives a Republican a better shot than I think they might have had otherwise, because Democrats are going to vote Democrat, but they'll be on the edges, will vote for independent. But there's fewer Democrats than independents in the state. Mm-hmm. She knows how to count.
Yeah, she knows how to count.
And then
and she's playing to a specific base.
And Republicans will be in better shape, but the issue will be, in my opinion, is what I will call this a soft R crowd. Mm-hmm. Because what's going to happen is you have some hard independents, I shouldn't say that, some hard conservatives who became independent because they think the Republican Party is just whack. So they're going to come back over and vote for the Republican. Same thing for some of the Democrats. So she's going to get the majority of independents. The question is, do they vote? Do independents vote? That is always the question, because they stay home a lot.
Right.
So she's going to draw them out, and she's going to draw some of the fringe. I'm not meaning like fringy kooky. I'm just talking
the edges.
Of both parties. But I'm not sure what it looks like, what the numbers are, because I think Republicans will stay home largely. I think they really will, understanding that Kirsten is, though an independent in name, she's really a Democrat.
She's a Democrat.
Yeah.
She's a Democrat. And she's actually, I know she comes off as moderate. She's a good friend of mine, but she's also, she's pretty lefty. She's pretty darn lefty. I mean, in reality.
Yeah. She's lefty in reality, but in some ways she seems moderate because some of the party has been so hard left.
Oh yeah, well that's true. That's true. She's over here, but
when you got people chasing you into the women's bathroom.
Oh yeah,
I mean
that's nutty.
the shark is being being
Yeah.
jumped at that
Oh,
point.
But and so for the president,
Well, and
president's
the other
race-
thing she has
yeah.
going for her, which I mean, you said that you're friends with her, friendly with her. That's the thing.
Yeah.
She's likable.
Yeah.
People like her, even if they'll disagree with her. And she and I have plenty of disagreements. But personally, if we're just sitting having a cup of coffee, I like her.
She is a phenomenal retail politician.
Absolutely,
She is.
and that makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's so on the floor of the House. Some Republican pointed this out to me recently. Where's Sinema? Does she do the same thing in the Senate that she did in the House? And I said, what do you mean? Well, she was on our side of the aisle more than she was on their side. And I said, that's true. That's because
That's
she could
what
count.
she does.
She could count. She was.
That's what she does.
She does.
She makes friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And she does it for her politically, but also I think genuinely she makes friends
She's a
with
nice
everybody.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think what I'm saying is it's going to be a hairy race again, and then for the president.
It's just going to be a bloodbath. You think?
Well, I mean, there's going to be again so much money spent here in this state again, and so right now I think it's Trump's race to lose in the primary side for the Republicans, and I think Kamala Harris is not liked, so she's going to be a non-factor.
Agreed.
But I think you're going to get people like Gavin Newsom, who is, wow, a barn-burning lefty. I mean, he's totally. And then the other guy that's going to be in there that we haven't heard much about yet is Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, who is also a barn-burning hard left guy, but he happens to be worth
Billions.
billions and billions.
Billions.
And so
Finances his own
they
campaign.
say, okay, I think I'd throw for $1 billion in just to see how it goes.
People
and
talk
talk
about
barn burning. Both those states are burning.
Yes.
Well, right.
They're
and
a complete,
but
total mess.
You want to talk about people saying, "Oh, Trump, the billionaire running for." Pritzker is a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, he's a billionaire.
Oh, it's,
And
yeah, it's
it's-
multiple. It's 8, 10 billion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It is an incredible amount of money that he has at his disposal. And
he's willing to spend it. I mean, he spent a
Yes.
lot of money running for governor
Yeah.
both times. I mean,
yeah, and I think he'll spend a lot of money. But for somebody like that, he has to decide: is this a hobby, or is this the real deal? You know, if it's a hobby, I'll throw $500 million at the hobby, and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
But if it's real, I mean, he's gonna have to commit to put a bunch of money in there, because the hard left, donor base, the George Soros type world, they want Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
where.
and Gavin, he has the issues in California, but he's got the visual package, right?
Yeah.
He's
right out
good-
of central cast.
Right out of central casting. He's got the actress wife. He's got small kids. It's the same, and he probably feels if he can begin to pivot a little bit to the middle on some issues, especially economic issues, which people care the most about.
I don't think he's capable.
But I don't think
of
he's
pivoting.
capable. I agree with you, but I would imagine that's his calculus.
For Gavin Newsom, pivoting to the middle is saying we have a guaranteed income for every person of $2,000 instead of $5,000.
Right.
That's a pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this will be fascinating to watch. We want to applaud you for sticking to your guns. A lot of people
it was
did not
fascinating
think,
to watch.
Yeah, a lot of people did not
Grab
think
the popcorn.
A lot of people did not think that this was the way to go. There were moments where I had my doubts. I have to be honest. I've been in these fights or adjacent to these fights before, and at the end of the day, the stuff that you guys got as a result of your standing firm is really, really important to the American people. And I hope that they understand it. I think that's one of the things that there's going to be a lot of people who will continue to criticize you. And one of the things I wanted to mention publicly, because I had texted you about this when I was in a meeting last week, that, a couple of the very prominent conservatives, chairmen of committees, said, you know what? This would not have happened but for Andy Biggs and the few folks who stood firm from the beginning, the never Kevins. Because without that, they didn't have the backup to really push.
Well,
so,
and the package that was passed and the fight that was made was good for the institution.
absolutely,
That
it's
I
good
agree
for
with.
America.
When people were saying, "Oh, this needs to end," I was sitting back saying, "Well, no, this is actually great for the institution," because there was a time, and we're not that far off from that time, when, yeah, everybody was on the floor, everybody was arguing and making an argument, and Democrats and Republicans were talking, and you saw some of that and arguing with each other, or just talking, just
Right. Having a conversation.
having a conversation on the floor of the House.
I mean, who would believe that Paul Gosar and AOC would be sitting on the floor talking to each other?
That is one of the
Not even me.
Well, I mean, and AOC was doing a lot of talking with some people,
Yeah.
and that's great.
That's awesome.
And she got a lot of flack for that, and to which I say bravo for her and bravo for them, because we get nothing done in this country unless we talk to each other.
Right.
Right. And,
And I would imagine, like I said before, a lot of the Democrats are secretly applauding that rules package because it gives them a place, gives them a place at the table, and it makes the Congress work.
yeah, because I think that they get frustrated with the hierarchy too, because as ours is more. I don't know how to describe what goes on in the Republican Party, but the Democrat Party, to me as an observer and talking to Democrats, it's so hierarchical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really stratified.
It's a lot of command and control.
That's exactly right. So Nancy Pelosi, I watched it happen. So you had Josh Gottheimer has got his 20, right? He's got his 20. And he's going to battle. We're never doing it. We were taking odds, 4 hours or under, 4 hours and over. You know what I mean? Because they're going to come in, and Nancy Pelosi's just going to say, Josh, no money for you, and primaries for all of your 20.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, well, let's just, can we have something to save face? No. No, nothing for you. Okay, all right.
No soup for you.
No soup for you. Well, and you've got to be happy. I mean, we have to say it that our own delegation has shifted, and we've got some good folks.
That's some great delegation.
I have to tell you, who was
ascended?
most pleasant, the biggest surprise of all was Eli Crane.
Mm-hmm.
He held firm. Between votes, so you had the tally, right? So that's when all hell would break loose during the tally. And that's when Eli, I mean, they were pounding that guy, and I was sitting next to him trying to kind of keep with, next thing you know, Andy, can I talk with you? This is a leadership. Can I talk with you for a minute? Yeah, sure. So I go talk with him. I look back. All of a sudden, there's every
piranhas.
every former Navy SEAL is over there. Every former military dude is over there telling him, and he's just saying, look, enough's enough. You're starting to make me mad.
I was just going to say, he's a former Navy SEAL. Well,
Yeah.
he is a Navy SEAL, and he's seen a lot and been through a lot worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was tough.
So
That's good. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
We'll
This was
watch.
fun.
We'll watch this with a lot of interest, and I'm sure we'll have reasons to bring you back when, if Kevin does keep all his promises, or if he doesn't, we'll have.
Yeah, we
stuff to
said
talk
earlier, Kevin's had a good week and a half.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
It's been a great week
We'll
and a
see
half.
if-
We've seen some real positive stuff.
We'll see if the motion to squish takes
Yeah.
hold. Hopefully
All right.
not.
Hopefully not.
Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening. God bless.
Take care.
Thanks.